All right, so after ghosting, ignoring Speaker McCarthy for nearly 100 days, Biden finally gave in and met with McCarthy about the debt ceiling. Now, in just 22 days, America will default on its debt unless the pair can reach an agreement. But Joe is still refusing to negotiate. Take a look.
97 days ago, I was right here after meeting with the president. On February 1st, I came down to see him, saying, let's work together in a responsible, sensible way that we can lift the debt ceiling and find a way that we can curb this increasing debt that is affecting every American family with inflation. Nothing has changed since then. The only thing that has changed is the House has raised the debt ceiling and passed the bill. That's why we had a meeting today. Everybody in this meeting reiterated the positions they were at. I didn't see any new movement. I don't want to play politics with this. I think this is too important. That's why 3 months ago I came to the president. Can't we find a way? I know we're both going to have to give and take. That's the way the founders have created our government. A House, a Senate, the executive branch. So let's sit down together, find places we can agree upon, and get this done.
Now, the Speaker is right. To Biden's surprise, House Republicans did pass a bill that both raises the debt ceiling and cuts spending. So now Biden can just sign the bill, or he will need to negotiate and find a resolution. And according to Joe Biden from 2011, he says that's the right thing to do. But remember, from the beginning, he said no negotiating. Take a look.
How do you explain the fact that grown men and women are unwilling to budge up till now, and still some of them are still unwilling to budge, by taking an absolute position, my way or no way? I predict to you that a lot of those new members who came here with my way or the highway, they'll either be on the highway or they'll learn that they have to have compromise.
All right, that was Biden then, and this is Biden now. Now he's my way or the highway. Take a look.
As I've said all along, let's discuss what we need to cut, what we need to protect, what new revenue we can raise, and how to lower the deficit to put our fiscal house in order. But in the meantime, we need to take the threat of default off the table. The first, you didn't listen either, so why should I even answer the question? We cut the deficit by $160 billion, B-I-L-L-I-O-N, dollars on the Medicare deal.
All right, now, unfortunately, Biden and his friends want a free pass, but Senate Republicans, they're standing firm. At least 43 of them now have signed on to a letter refusing to vote for a debt ceiling increase without serious spending and budget reform. My next guest also says he would not support the so-called clean debt ceiling increase unless it has fiscal responsibility measures in it. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy is with us right now. So he had 97 days to meet with McCarthy. 97 days to negotiate. Finally, the House raises the debt ceiling. They return spending to 2022 levels. They reduce baseline budgeting to only a 1% increase annually to keep the budget in line. They also have provisions in there, for example, for energy. To me, it's a great bill. You would be the 44th senator that will not go along with cloture. It looks like it's that bill or no bill, because I don't think Kevin McCarthy is going to be able to change his caucus.
Well, there's only one plan on the table, and that's Speaker McCarthy's and Majority Leader Scalise's. Look, Sean, I confess, I don't understand President Biden.
That's one of the greatest mysteries of the universe, Senator. If you could, I would be listening for hours.
Well, there are times that I think President Biden is being advised by the marketing team at Budweiser. His poll numbers are on a journey to the center of the earth. And it's no mystery why. Because of the president's policies, the American people feel chewed up, spit out, and stepped on. Inflation, crime, the border, Afghanistan, the forfeiture of America's energy independence. Because of his COVID policies, our kids have experienced the largest learning loss in modern history. I mean, how many roads must a man walk down until he knows he is lost? Now, Speaker McCarthy has given the president an extraordinary opportunity to demonstrate leadership. And if the president doesn't take it, and he causes America to default on its debt, the president's a smoke turkey. And I don't understand why he doesn't understand that. Today they met finally, and what did the president do? He said, well, I'm going to turn it over to my staff. I don't like your bill that you, even though it's the only plan on the table, I'm going to turn it over to my staff, and we may meet again. Are you kidding me? I mean, fair or not, according to the polls, most Americans think the president is older than the Adirondack Mountains, and that he's not fit to be president. What the president should have done, what I would have done in that situation, is say, okay, Speaker, I appreciate you coming by. Clear your calendar. We're going to meet 4 hours tomorrow, 4 hours the next day, 4 hours the next day, 4 hours the next day, until we hammer out an agreement that raises the debt ceiling and reduces the rate of growth of spending and debt accumulation to get inflation under control and demonstrate leadership.
Do you believe that Mitch McConnell will stand strong with the 43 other Republican senators? And by the way, I think Joe Manchin is on board with this as well. Will he stay firm in insisting on the type of fiscal restraints that the House bill put in place?
Well, you'll have to ask Mitch that question, Sean. I just know that that we are trading in our future for today with all the spending. This spending and debt accumulation is the underlying reason we have inflation. And no one, I don't want to default on America's debt, but this is an extraordinary opportunity for us to solve two problems at once, and I just don't understand why President Biden will not see it like that. Because I mean it. Right now, McCarthy's plan is the only plan on the table. And if the president rejects it and causes America to default on its debt, he is a smoke turkey, and America is hurt badly.
There will be only one person in the end to blame, and that's Joe Biden. He was betting the last 97 days that Republicans with a small majority would not pass a bill. Well, they did. And now he's got to deal with it. And thankfully, and I'll say this to you and your 43 other colleagues, you're holding firm in the Senate. That will enable what is a fiscally responsible bill to be passed, one that also raises the debt ceiling so the country doesn't default.
Well, I'm very proud of Speaker McCarthy. I'm very proud of Majority Leader Scalise. I like the bill, and I'm hoping that I shouldn't say that. I'm hoping that the president will. I'm hoping that the president will agree that it's something worth pursuing. Let me be polite and end this with politeness.
You know, I wish I didn't stop you. Whenever you want to say something, just let it out on this show, Senator. We appreciate your honesty.
Everybody needs to take their meds and act like an adult for a change.
We're talking about Washington. I'm not sure if that's possible. I don't know if there's enough medication available in the country to help out that swamp. Anyway, Senator, great to see you. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.